All right.
Man.
It's the Domestic Draft Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slowick. We're going to be doing a season preview for our Chicago Bulls today with a few special guests. But first, Dan, what are you drinking?
Phase 3. I think it's our most talked about beer on this show. Our very good friend now works for them full time. But it's Phase 3 Mind Spark. It's a double IPA. It is 7.7%, 4.2 on Untapped. The description online is it's their base loaded up with oats, a little bit of wheat, throw in some mosaic and some cryo mosaic hops. It goes and creates this complex flavor, including blueberries, subtle citrus, rose water. It's good, very easy to drink. But shout out to Phase 3, allowing us to kind of hang out in their space, get a little tour of their back production area. And we even did a little kind of pre-fantasy football draft hangout kind of in that back area. So love Phase 3. If you're in the suburbs of Illinois, go ahead and check them out. Great brewery. And thanks again to Gavin. What do you got?
Big fans of Phase 3 on this show. I have Brewdew by Three Floyds. Three Floyds is known, I think, around the Chicago area to be a Chicago beer, but it's actually brewed in Munster, Indiana, which is about an hour drive outside of the city. They had a brew pub out there. It unfortunately closed in 2020 during COVID. But, the thing that I recognize first when I see these bottles is the logo. It looks, to me, it's like the Avenged Sevenfold logo. So I always think if Avenged Sevenfold had a brewery like this, Three Floyds would be it. But they have like that signature hoppy taste, and Brewdew is no different. It gets 3.97 on Untapped. It's 82 IBUs, 7% ABV. It's really hoppy IPA. It's, if you've ever had Zombie Dust, which is probably their most well-known beer, it's a little bit hoppier and a little more bitter than Zombie Dust. But speaking of the Chicagoland area, we have some friends coming on to join us today to talk about the Chicago Bulls and do a little season preview with us. It's the Nothin But Bull Podcast. They're at Bull Nothin, BULLNOTHIN on Twitter. Thank you three for joining us today. Derek, Melissa, and Justin.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Now, I am very much a part of like Bulls Twitter. And I think if you're a part of that community, you see a lot of the same handles putting out some information. But I just stumbled upon you guys not that long ago and saw you're getting some guests on your show. You're doing a lot of cool art and just posting like a lot of Bulls content. So I'm curious of how you three got together, created this new kind of brand for Bulls fans to follow, and what that story was like.
Well, it started out, I was writing a blog for this other like Bulls type of website. And then somehow I ended up being like the section manager for the Bulls portion of it, because it did like the Bears and the Cubs and all the other Chicago sports teams. Justin ended up coming on and he's writing blogs as well. And they wanted to start a podcast. So it started out with me and two other guys. I was not the host originally. One of the hosts, he had to step away. I guess he got too busy to do the stuff, so they made me the host. Then Justin came on with me and the other guy. The other guy drops off, so it's just me and Justin. And then like that whole thing just kind of dissolved with doing anything for that website. And I'm just chilling, just being a fan and not really writing anything, not doing any podcasts. And Stacey King, my buddy, he was on the podcast at first, but it didn't record. So he hits me up and he's like, I gotta come back on the podcast, didn't record. How's the podcast going? I'm like, well, I don't have one. And the next day, Justin texts me and he's like, hey, if you ever want to do another podcast, let me know. So I was like, okay. I threw something together real quick and we had Stacey King come on, and we've been doing it ever since then. It's Nothing But Bull.
Nice. So how long has it been? Number one. And number two, we got to ask, how do you know Stacey King?
Let's see. It's been about, I want to say maybe 2 years of doing this. And Stacey, Stacey, like if you tweet Stacey King and you say you're coming to a game and you ask to take a picture, he'll like always respond like, sure, come on. So I'm out in like the DC area. So the Bulls are coming in town to play the Wizards. And I'm like, Stacey, can I get a picture with you after the game? And he's like, sure. I'll be, it's like up top or somewhere in the Wizards arena. And I could not find him. So after the game,
hard man to miss.
yeah, I could not find where they had him. So after the game, he hits me up and he's like, I tried to wait, man. Sorry, I missed you. I was like, it's cool. I'll try to come out to Chicago and get a picture with you. And he says, if you come out to Chicago, I'll give you tickets to the game. And he like next day aired me tickets to a Bulls game in Chicago.
Wow.
Came out there. I met him, took a picture. He brought me onto the arena floor, and me and him have been cool ever since then.
Man, that's a great story, and it's a testament to like how good of a guy Stacey King is. Love to hear that when you got your local kind of TV guy just being an all around good guy. Go for it.
It doesn't quite tell the full story of how gracious Stacey was. Our particular podcast, we were having a lot of issues, like technical issues. And, there were times that things just weren't recording right. There were times when we were recording and the sound would just go out, and somehow whatever content that I was trying to put out there, it would just go off, and it would like literally send me in like a totally different realm. Like I would be talking and Derek isn't hearing anything that I'm saying. And every once in a while, like the sound would cut in and it would cut out. And like, you were just getting these snippets, and it became kind of like just comical. It became like just part of the show, because it would do it on these like random occasions throughout our podcast. And, Stacey, he like understood what our situation was. Like we didn't have the best format that we were using that could really capture what we were trying to put out there. And he was very gracious in agreeing to record it again for us. I mean, that's not something that, especially someone with like his busy schedule,
right?
Something that he would have to do for us, especially, like we're unknowns. No one knows what we're doing. We're starting off like really, really small. And, for him to just offer up his time like that, it really just highlighted the type of person that he was, and trying to help us get kind of started and, get established. And he's been just lights out for us and helping us any way that he can. So just a really big shout out to him.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I know we've been in those situations too, where you get a big guest and you're like, wow, this is just incredible. We get the opportunity to talk to somebody like that we really admire. Now I got to ask Melissa, how did you get on the show?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I almost feel like Derek should answer that one, but we met through Twitter Space. We both do we're both moderators for Bulls community. So Derek does Discord and I do Twitter. So that's how we met, and kind of how we met. But Derek was asking me to be a guest on the podcast, and I kept saying, no, not my thing. I don't want to be in front of the camera. I'm cool just tweeting. But he was pretty persistent. And then as he does with the guest, he kind of just bullied me into it and tweeted. And he's like, join us in the next episode with special guest Melissa. And I'm like, you did not do that. So yeah, that's how that happened. So I couldn't say no. So I hopped on as a guest with Stacey. That was the first episode. And I don't know how to describe it from there, but they kind of got into a conversation on how I should be a regular, and we just went with it. So
love it. Just bullied into a Bulls podcast. It makes sense.
see, it all goes back to Stacey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like we were launching, like, because we were just audio at the time. So we were launching our YouTube channel and doing the Zoom. And I told Melissa, I was like, come on. Stacey King's going to be on. You really don't have to do that much talking. And Stacey's like, are you part of the show? You need to join the show. Y'all should hire her. So I'm like, Melissa, you're part of the show now.
Listen to Stacey King. Yeah.
You got to.
Exactly. I think all Bulls fans kind of have like maybe a roster or team that really kind of solidified their fandom. I don't know, for most people, right? It's the 90s Bulls, it's Michael Jordan. But for some of the younger audiences that listen to it, it's different rosters, different teams, different players. I'm curious for you three going around. I don't know what order you guys want to answer in, but who was kind of your team that made you kind of fall in love? Or did you have a player that really just kind of hit home to you?
Well, I grew up on the 90s Bulls.
Go ahead.
I'm a little bit on the older side, so I did grow up on the 90s Bulls. What I really remember most is the second three-peat. So that is the era that I grew up in. My family, they were huge Bulls fans, as almost everybody in Chicago was. So I was kind of just born into it. My family would have parties all the time, watch parties, and you'll see me in my kid pictures with Bulls gear on. So that was where my love came from, and ever since then, it's been me and the Bulls, even through the darkest years.
For myself, it really, like, growing up, I did not like basketball at all. I didn't like sports really. But I looked at the Bulls when they were playing in the championships versus the Lakers. And the only reason that I even watched that game was because my dad was watching it, and I just, wanted to spend time with my dad. And that kind of like that game, it got me into, of course, with Michael Jordan and Scottie. But it also helped like me just kind of like, I don't want to say forge a relationship with him, but like from that, like we started to get a lot closer by us sharing that moment together. So I'm not from Chicago. No one in my family is from Chicago. So that was like my main introduction. And ever since then, it's just been a part of my life.
Wow. Where are you based out of, Justin? So, Melissa's in Chicago and Derek's out of DC. Where are you at?
Oh, I'm in Florida. Like I grew up in South Florida most of my life. Now we're just outside of Tampa.
Wow. That's cool. I love that you guys are all over the country too, just kind of like Dan and I are. So that's really cool. What about you, Derek?
At a friend's house and saw a VHS of Michael Jordan's Playground.
That was like our family VHS road trip video.
And seeing that, I'm like, wow, this guy is like really good. And then it just became a fan of the Bulls since then, following Jordan. Kid pictures, you'll always see me like the Bulls starter jacket and starter hat and a pair of Jordans on, and been following the Bulls since then, and collecting Jordans since then. So it's been since elementary school.
You got a sweet collection of Jordans?
You got your favorite pair?
Yeah, the black and red 11s.
Oh wow!
I thought he was gonna go 4s too. I like the 4s a lot.
Yeah, I actually have the 4s on right now.
Yeah,
let's see them. What? Yeah, gotta check them out.
I had the blue military 4s. You had the reds, the Mars, right? Mars 4s.
Making him unlace them and stuff. Sorry about that. We got to check this out. Those are sweet. Those just came out, I think, not that long ago. I was trying to get a pair of those.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
Mars 4s are definitely up there, though.
Yeah.
I think those
Mars 4s are sweet.
Yeah.
2006 or something.
1s, the 11s, 4s, the 3s.
Yeah,
3s,
4s, and 11s for me.
Nice. Sounds like a good collection. All right, so we got to talk about this current team because that's where we're at now. Unfortunately, a little bit. No, I think they're good. They were great last year. I think they're going to surprise us even more this year. But what about Lonzo Ball? What do you guys think is happening with him? There's a lot of uncertainty with that. Are we still worried about that? What do you guys think?
I think the Bulls right now are in a much better position than they were last year. Well, I mean, I don't think I think everybody just knows. We had a lot of uncertainty because we know that with Lonzo, before even Lonzo came there, we didn't have an established point guard who could really like push the pace for the team. We had bigs before, like with Laurie and Wendell, that I really think, even though they're not on the team right now, obviously, but I think that just playing with an established point guard could have helped like further their career while they were in a Bulls uniform. But, obviously that didn't work out. We were able to get Vooch. But with what Lonzo brings, like he's just brings that athleticism, that defensive element that we're missing as far as having two-way players. So obviously not having him on our team right now in the beginning of the year, it's going to impact them. But I think with the emergence of Io, he's been putting in the work from what we've been seeing over the summer. And Caruso is going to be healthy. Obviously, they added Goran too. So I think they're a lot better able to kind of weather this storm if and when, hopefully when Alonso rejoins the team. But I think they're in a much better position to be able to move ahead and really establish an identity. With Lonzo not being on the team at the beginning, like allow somebody to kind of take that starting point guard position and just kind of just like move things forward. I'm really honestly hoping that Io steps up and he's able to do that, because if you have Caruso and he's like coming in and leading that second wave with the second unit and being able to like limit his amount, not that he shouldn't be on the floor, obviously, but with him being able to like play a certain amount of minutes, and we know that he's going to be in that closing lineup as well, I think the Bulls have positioned themselves like greatly to be able to get things done.
Yeah. I mean, I think every Bulls fan wants to hopefully see Io take that step. I just still with Lonzo, you hate to speculate on injury, especially, when they're not releasing anything, but he's been rehabbing a torn meniscus for quite some time now. Do you think it's pain? Is he just like pain tolerance, or is there something going on there? He's had all of these specialists looking at it. Everyone says the knee's structurally sound, but he won't be ready for training camp. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Io take that step, but I mean, if we're going to go deep into the playoffs, Lonzo's the guy. You need Lonzo out there.
Yeah, from my understanding, on top of that torn meniscus, it was a bone bruise, and bone bruises can take like a couple years sometimes to heal. Like Kendrick Nunn had a bone bruise; he missed all of last season. So I think what's bothering Lonzo is that pain, that discomfort he's feeling is still the bruise on the bone in his knee. And he's missed, I think, maybe it's about a year since he went down with. So like hopefully he'll be able to come back. Of course, it's not going to be training camp, but maybe like January-ish, he should be able to go. I mean, it just depends on how that bone is going to heal.
Drink some milk, Lonzo.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly hope to see him at some point, right? I mean, I just don't know when that's going to be. Nobody does. But what we do know is that we signed Andre Drummond, and he's somebody that I've always had a love for, because I love a good rebound. And so I'm ecstatic to have him on the team. I think he's going to be worlds better than Tristan Thompson was in that role. Obviously not expecting him to step up and be like a starting center or anything, or be like, this guy that he used to be at the beginning of his career, because the game's changed so much that he's not, his role is what it is. It's a backup center. It's somebody that can rebound and stuff. But what do you guys think about that? Is he this polarizing player that I think where you hate him or you love him? Do you guys have big opinions on him?
Well, wait a minute. I'm reading body language. So
I know. I'm seeing Dan over there. Like,
what's going on?
I've never been a fan.
Friendly disagreement on the show about Andre Drummond for a while.
Never been a
Bulls
fan.
signed
I
him.
think it's a lot of empty calorie stats that he is able to produce. I just don't think he plays winning basketball, in my opinion.
That's
at the
funny.
very least, we really needed rebounds, and of course he's going to provide that as an elite rebounder at the very least. We didn't really address the rim protection, but as you know, we really need somebody to crash boards so badly. So at the very least, we'll get that, and it is an upgrade from good old TT. So
Yeah,
any kind of upgrade is good.
You gave that
Thompson was atrocious.
It's funny because me and Justin have had the same debate. I'm with Dan, where it's like he plays on the Pistons. He's going to put up numbers because they have nobody else. They're not good. Justin's, he had belief in Drummond, and I will say Drummond did turn it around last season with the Sixers and the Nets. So hopefully, anything's better than Tristan Thompson. He gave us nothing. So
Yeah.
is then when you have Tony Bradley, who's not going to give you anything. So it's like a low bar set that he should be able to hurdle.
Yeah. And he was super cheap too, I think, right? Like a couple $1 million, if that. And the Bulls, the first like half of this last season, I just remember looking at the rebounds every game. We were just getting out rebound every single game. So hopefully they'll pull closer on that stat. But I guess maybe this year we'll finally get to see if he's a contributor or not, right, Dan? We'll be following.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it all year. I'm staying pretty dug in on my opinion of him. We can move on though, because there's something that happened recently, and Bulls fans are constantly looking for any news, any updates, and we signed an Antetokounmpo, but not Giannis. We signed his brother. Is this like, and there's those weird comments by Giannis too, like over the summer about like, Chicago's cool, like wouldn't mind playing there. And then AK Mark Eversley, they go out and sign his brother. Is this kind of like where there's smoke, there might be fire? Are we just trying our damnedest to like, talk to your brother about our organization, see how great it is, come on over, we're going to have space coming up? What do you make of that? Or is it just like, yeah, he's a versatile player, his big body runs the floor? What do we think?
I think that this management group has proven like they will build inroads wherever they can. It's all about like having some type of connection with outside players and just like getting their reach out there and just kind of building that brand. And I think that if there's any possibility of throwing, a prime player's brother, a particular contract or getting them on the team to get that said prime player, I think that those guys are going to do whatever they need to. I think they position themselves to be able to reshape the roster in different ways. We know that Vooch will be out the books, and it's not like I'm saying that I want the Bulls to get rid of Vooch, but the way that they've settled these contracts, they are able to move in a fluid way. And if you can, develop those relationships with top tier players and through back channels, then that's what you got to do. I think that's definitely a move that they will be looking at. So it's a possibility, and they'll be able to move in that area if they can.
Yeah, I think it's
too. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a combination of all that, because like he's a big body, can play power forward. We have Patrick Williams in. Who's the backup? Is it Derrick Jones Jr.? Are they gonna like slide Javante as a backup power forward again? Like we need those big bodies, and then on top of that, him being Giannis's brother, that Chicago has a great Greek community. You kind of tour coasts around, show them like, yeah, go tell your brother it's pretty nice here. And so I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's not going to hurt. I don't know that they're necessarily doing that just to lure him over, but just to piggyback off Derek, that's exactly how I feel about it too. And he's a younger guy too, so either way, it'll be good for us. But again, not necessarily putting stock into the fact that we're going to get his brother just because of that signing, but it can't hurt.
Yeah, definitely can't hurt.
Yeah. All right. I think too, like just real quick, speaking to Justin's point about like this organization making these relationships, did you all see that they dropped Zenny and brought on Motorola? And did you see that like Clutch Sports was a part of this like process as well, which is, as you follow the NBA, it's like one of the biggest representatives of the high end players. So I love what we're doing. It's nice to be a fan of a franchise that is like in the 21st century and isn't like stuck in our ways, and it's like us against them, to where it's like, yeah, let's take on as much help and let's collaborate with as many people as possible, and let's build this thing into a winning franchise. So just wanted to bring that up. What were you gonna say, Evan?
I was gonna say, I mean, certainly the Bulls are doing a better job of management than other teams in the Chicago area, but I wanted to get a hot take from each of you. Maybe it's on your expectations for this year, or their record that you think, or somebody that's going to be, take the biggest jump? Just one hot take from each of you before we get you guys out of here.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a hot take or not, but Patrick Williams is going to have a monster season this year.
I think that's a little bit of a hot take, given what we've seen so far.
What's
Why
monster
so?
for you? All-star?
No, because I think he'll still get like the fourth option, but like a solid 12-8 average, and from a fourth option, being the best defensive player, guarding the best offensive player on the other team, and being able to get key stops and help us get wins. That's what I'm thinking is going to be for Pat.
Melissa, you sounded like you're about to say.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. I think he's going to grow into himself. I think he's probably gained a lot of confidence over this offseason, especially all this training that we've been seeing and him obviously bulking up. So that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I think is going to happen. He's going to take a big jump. And we all have he knows what's going on. Everybody's talking about him.
A lot of pressure.
Expectations of him. It's all not what we know about him yet. It's all what we're hoping to see from him. So as a competitor, I think he'll bring it this year. I think we'll see a big jump.
Right.
Man,
Justin?
I honestly think that you could, and this might sound crazy, but you could see Zach LaVine's name mentioned in MVP consideration. And the reason why I'm saying that, as wild and crazy as that sounds, when Zach was on the Olympic team, one of the things that I noticed was a player who obviously has the athletic ability, but one of the jumps that I saw in Zach's game was his ability to kind of control things from a defensive standpoint at like one of the highest levels on that Olympic team. He was one of the most engaged players. It's within his capability of doing that. And I think if he like really locks in with that, considering the fact of the great year that he had, and people were looking at it like a down year, like that's how he has established himself within these past couple of years with his athletic ability. And I think if he comes in locked in from a defensive standpoint, fully healthy, he's capable of putting himself in that conversation, much to the same way that DeMar was able to come in and just, at least be in that MVP consideration talk for about a month and a half, maybe two. I think that Zach's capable of taking his game to another level and getting there as well.
Love to hear it. And my hot take, you didn't ask for it, but I'll give it to you. I think that Vucevic will return and have one of his best seasons in the NBA this year. I think he's third year, find some comfort, knows his role. He was kind of our best player in the playoffs. And I think the players respect him for that. So I think he's got some confidence amongst them. All right. This has been a lot of fun. Melissa, Justin, Derek, I really appreciate it. If you're listening at home, again, this was the Nothin But Bull podcast here on the Domestic Draft Podcast. Give them a follow on Twitter. That is at BullNothin, BullNothin. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank you guys for
Thank
having
you guys.
Thank you.
For having us.
All right. Thanks again to our guests, the Nothin But Bull podcast. Again, you can find them on Twitter at BullNothin. A really cool story. All three of them, all throughout the country, I thought was really interesting. You and I on opposite ends of the country here. So very cool when you see such an organic start to a podcast like that. But let's move over to our Bears, Dan. I want to hear your thoughts on this loss to the Packers. I feel like we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And it still disappoints you just as much every single time we see it. But of course, primetime game, Bears lose 27-10. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was expected is what I think. Also, I still listen out here, through certain apps. I still listen to Chicago Sports Talk Radio, and some of these people are like, all right, team sucks. Poles is a fraud. Fields is done. And it's like, man, what? Like, one of the youngest teams, we just cleared house. We're spending $60 million to pay people that aren't on this roster. Like, we literally just cleared, like, control, alt, delete everything, cleared house, young quarterback, and we're 1-1 against the Niners and Packers after 2 weeks. I think, like, if you zoom out and give a macro look as a Bears fan, you should be happy. But most Bears fans were so reactionary off of the last game. And of course, it's the Packers, so let's magnify it by 1,000%. Justin Fields has some of the worst passing stats through week 2, even though we're seeing, year 3 quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts taking a huge jump this year. Let's just say that Fields is dog shit. Like, I hate that stuff. That's why we ruin quarterbacks every single time. We just run them out of town, completely fuck them up. We give them no time to just maturate and just grow into the role. We're just such a what can you do for me right now? And we don't trust the process as a fan base. But I think the game was fine. I knew it was going to be a loss. I thought he scored a touchdown. I thought it should have been a little closer. And if it was, I think the whole entire tone, if that score counts, it would have been like what? 14-27 for the final, maybe a 17-27, 10-point loss to the Packers, one of the best defenses in the league. I don't know, man. Well, you're on the other side. I see you kind of hemming and hawing over some of the things.
Just the Chicago Sports Talk Radio, discussions after a loss to the Packers, it's the same every time. And deep down, all those talking heads were waiting for them to lose their first game so that they could go off, because they knew that this is what this team was supposed to look like, right? We were supposed to lose big to decent to good teams throughout the whole year, but they won that first week, and that changed the expectations, I think, for a lot of people. So everyone was like suddenly like, maybe we could beat Aaron Rodgers now. They don't have any receivers and all the talking points there, but I mean, this is the team that they are, and they're going to lose games like this for majority of the season. I think Justin Fields has a lot of like learning and development to go through this whole year. So we'll see where he's at by the end of the year. I agree with you that like I'm not completely out on Justin Fields because he had one bad game against the Packers in prime time. That is a pretty good defense. But yeah, I think he scored too. I don't want to, blame that for this loss at all, but the clear and obvious thing is ridiculous when you know that the guy scored a touchdown. You're like, I can't see the ball, so it doesn't count, but he definitely scored there. Aaron Jones had a monster game. We couldn't stop him at all. David Montgomery, though, was like my player of the game, I think, on the Bears side of the ball. He was amazing on the ground. Cole Kmet, still getting nothing out of you. Darnell Mooney, still getting nothing out of you. I know Fields didn't throw a lot of passes, so neither of those guys could get going. Nobody really could. But when I did see someone catch a pass, it seemed like it was Equanimeous St. Brown. So they got to let him throw it a little bit more. The old regime, though, didn't let him throw it either. So to me, is there just no confidence in anybody in Justin's arm yet? So I think that's an interesting development between two regimes. Neither of them are letting him air it out. What do you think about that?
Again, zoom out. What was the biggest position of need that every Bears fan always talks about this roster? Offensive line, right? Can never block anyone. The quarterback never has any time for anything to develop. We're starting a rookie, 2 second-year players, a guy that just like had hand surgeries coming in and rotating with Jenkins as well. And we just straight up ran the ball down their throat. One of the best defenses, quote unquote, in the NFL. That offensive line was punishing people on the run block, which is awesome. Doesn't matter. We lost. Look at those tape. Look at the film. Those guys are just driving people out of bounds, finishing plays. They're tough. I think they're getting kind of a reputation of being a little nasty. I kind of can't wait until Patrick has his hand healed and he can move to center so Jenkins can be there and he could be there as well instead of rotating. And then I think we say goodbye to Mustafa. And I think this line gets pretty nasty real quick. And again, we're not expecting anything this year, but if we could shore up an offensive line, that sounds great. That's something we haven't had in forever. And if that could be one of our strong suits, and again, with Poles being an offensive lineman himself, I think that's what his point of emphasis. You could put anyone back there, Fields, or you sign a vet maybe. And I think we're going to spend a lot of money next season, but the season is what it is, man. Look at the things you want to look at for progress, maybe out of the offensive line, out of the quarterback, our secondary. Receiver is going to be tough because there's just not a lot of talent there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm happy, man. We're 1-1. I'm happy.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I don't know. If they had lost the first game and won the second one, I think obviously I'd be feeling a lot better about it, but you'd be 1-1.
It'd be the same record, man.
Yeah.
You are what your record says you are.
Yeah. We'll see how they progress throughout the season, but there's definitely a lot of questions. So
yeah, let's move ahead, man. Again, so glad fantasy football is back. Favorite segment. Tell me how I could win this week. Give me your waiver wire Wednesday.
I did hit on a couple big ones last week. Carson Wentz was the guy that I said was the solid streamer. 33 fantasy points, I believe. So, and you know what? He looked so good the last 2 games. I'd say he might be a long-term solution at quarterback. Jared Goff also might not be a bad one with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He thrown to him. He's got DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds too, who's a decent little slot man. I think Goff could be, an option too. The Lions have put up over 30 points in back-to-back games. So those 2 guys, I think if you need a quarterback, Raheem Mostert, check if he's out there. He's 44% owned. He outsnapped and outplayed Chase Edmonds this week for Miami. That's a good offense and a coach that likes to run the ball. He comes from San Francisco. Another running back that I think is interesting is Jerick McKinnon. He outsnapped Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, even though Edwards-Helaire outscored him. But McKinnon seems to be pretty active in the passing game. So something to monitor. I wouldn't necessarily play him, but somebody maybe to keep on your bench and see how that plays out. Darrell Williams and Benjamin are the backups in Arizona. James Conner got hurt, might miss some time. He's been a little bit injury prone in his career. He had a great last year, but before that he was always injured. So I prefer Williams out of these 2. I think he's the bigger back and he'll probably get more opportunities, but Benjamin's a decent passing game option. And then deep leagues, Jordan Mason is maybe a name to keep an eye on. He's only 5% owned. Ty Davis-Price was the backup in San Francisco after Eli Mitchell got hurt. Him and Jeff Wilson were splitting carries. Now Ty Davis-Price and Eli Mitchell are down. Jeff Wilson's still probably going to be the main guy in that run-heavy offense. They might give some opportunities to Jordan Mason or Marlon Mack, who I think they just brought up from their practice squad. Wide receivers, Garrett Wilson had a monster game, went 8 catches for 102 yards on 14 targets with 2 touchdowns. It's a huge game. And he only played 61% of the snaps. So, there's still a ton of meat on the bone there, so to speak, with Garrett Wilson. He's only 25% on. Was one of the first rookie wide receivers drafted this year. So, big-time talent. I'd look for him. Jahan Dotson was somebody I named last week, too, as a potential stash. But he's now running the most routes of any receiver on Washington. I like him just as much as Terry McLaurin at this point already, and it's only been 2 weeks. Wentz is looking really good. Curtis Samuel's looking good, but Dotson's on the field the most out of all those guys, and he scored 2 straight weeks with multiple touchdowns. He's a stud. And then if you need a tight end, it's pretty thin, honestly. Hayden Hurst might be somebody to look for. He had 8 targets week 1, 7 targets in week 2. Solid option if you lost somebody like Dalton Schultz, who might miss this week. And then if you need a defense, I'm going with Chicago this week against Houston. They're only 6% rostered, but Houston's not great. And I mean, Bears could step it up. Yeah. If Kyler Gordon picks it up a little bit, he had a rough game against the Packers, but if he picks it up, I mean,
guys,
they could have a good week.
He had a rough game against one of the best quarterbacks of all time. It's going to happen. Yeah. He's a rookie. People are like, oh, this guy stinks. Second game in the NFL, and he's playing Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Give him a break. Right. All right. Let's go over the picks. I don't want to do any explanation. I want to just shoot from the hip, run it down.
Okay. What was your record last week?
Last week, yes, if you're listening, I went 7-9 last week. Couple close ones that didn't go my way with the Chargers, the Browns winning didn't go my way, and the Falcons upsetting the Rams. Almost happened, didn't go my way.
Dolphins come back too. I think they were down 21 points in the fourth quarter, first time ever. All right, let's get into this week. Steelers at Browns is the Thursday night game.
Browns.
All right. Sunday, Saints at Panthers.
Carolina.
Texans at Bears.
Bears.
All right. Love to hear it. Chiefs at Colts.
Chiefs.
Yeah, Colts have been looking pretty terrible. Bills at Dolphins.
Bills. That team looks unstoppable.
All right. Lions at Vikings.
It's going to be a great game. Let's go Lions, man. Did Kirk
Vikings
Cousins look like dog shit or what?
Yeah. He was terrible. They couldn't get the ball to Jefferson at all. It seems like that's the only guy they're looking for.
I'll say that Dalvin Cook might go off, but yeah, Lions.
Okay. Ravens at Patriots.
Patriots.
Ooh. Bengals at Jets. Bengals are 0-2.
Bengals.
Raiders at Titans. Both teams 0-2.
Raiders.
Eagles 2-0 at Commanders.
Eagles.
Jaguars at Chargers.
Chargers.
Rams at Cardinals. That one's always fun.
Cardinals. I'm not buying any of the Rams stock this year.
Wow. Falcons at Seahawks.
Falcons.
That's gonna be a ugly one to watch there. Packers at Bucks.
Bucks.
The night game, 49ers at Broncos.
Niners. Jimmy G.
Yeah, Broncos have looked pretty brutal so far. I don't really like Nathaniel Hackett. And then the Monday night game is Cowboys at Giants. Giants are 2-0.
Giants. The G-Man.
They've been getting it done. But
there it is.
all right.
Week 3.
Week 3, there it is. I got a fast fact for you before we get out of the show. It's a fantasy football fact, actually. I happen to have Stephon Diggs on a fantasy team, so I looked this stat up, but he has more PPR fantasy points through 2 games than any receiver has in the last 20 years. So if you can get Stephon Diggs, go get him. But I think he's in for one of the biggest wide receiver seasons of all time. What do you think?
Possibly. Probably not far behind as Amon-Ra St. Brown, just because he's on my team.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again to the Nothin But Bull Podcast for joining us today. For Dan Sloak, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. We're actually playing each other in fantasy football this week, so we'll recap that next week. But if you've been listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening.
Cheers.
Cheers.